Kulinski's simps for economic nationalism. So a while back I made a video reacting to this video, which I deleted because it was a stupid rant, but here I was basically talking about why Kulinski's protectionist talking points are just based on utter garbage logic, and really it just ignores basic economics and why we have globalization in the first place. So this video is going to be divided into a couple of talking points like, do we need to spend billions on very few jobs? Why not globalization? What about the lockdowns that we had which caused the supply chain crisis? Why we don't see as many factories in the US? And possible solutions to the overall problem of a manufacturing employment drain on, the Rust Belt. Okay. So in economics, obviously there is a term called cost that can be associated with both time or money, but there's also opportunity cost, in which the cost of doing something is the cost of not having the benefit of doing a much better alternative. So the $20 billion investment that Intel put into creating their Ohio factories, according to this article, it's mostly it comes from state and federal subsidies. Let's read here. The site will be Ohio's biggest economic development project in history, but to get the fab, the state had to provide Intel about $2.1 billion in various incentives. In addition, Intel is expected to get funding from the federal government as part of the CHIPS Act. Not to do with potato chips, I assume. Overall, a significant portion of Intel's $20 billion investment will come from government coffers. Now, just to get you an idea on how many jobs this is going to be created, various websites like Jobs Ohio says it creates 3,000 jobs, and these are high-tech jobs, so the average Rust Belt unemployed person's not going to get this job. And I found elsewhere that it pays an average of $135,000 a year in salary. But that being said, this investment costs I guess somewhere between 10 and 20 billion. Now, $20 billion can cover the cost of 25% of Ohio's healthcare spending. So what the government could have done is just immediately covered a quarter of their population's healthcare, spending. And yeah, maybe that would be good, providing Kyle Kulinski loves universal healthcare, and he believes everyone should just get free healthcare. But instead, we have this, this silly project. Now, what about the jobs and all of those salaries that are being paid? Would that not help the population? Well, I've calculated that if a working population gets paid $105 million a year in total, it would take 25 years to match the $10 billion initial investment cost. Which is a really long time to get back the money you get. I mean, imagine waiting $25 billion to even cover the cost of your investment. Oh, but base libertarian, there's lots of spending to stimulate the economy. Think about the construction workers who are given money to, build the factory. Yeah, but ultimately that comes from taxing the population, which isn't a good thing. Now, why not globalization? Yeah, so globalization obviously exists because third world countries have access to cheaper pools of labor forces. And although the workers are paid nominally less, and let's face it, corporations are trying to make as much money as they can, because the workers of those countries have lower living costs, like lower housing rents, their purchasing power is the same, if not greater, than the average American worker. And creating good jobs actually reduces the strain on immigration, because rather than these workers having to migrate into the United States to get a good job, they can just stay put where they are and get paid a fairly good job. Yeah, and the cost of production is reduced significantly, because I would argue that if a factory is using Chinese steel, because Chinese steel is cheaper, then it would be more efficient to have a semiconductor factory or a car factory also in China, because that steel only has to travel from one part of China to another part of China. And then after that, all you gotta do is use a boat to, transport the cars or semiconductors, into the United States, which is actually less of a logistical problem. Lockdown, supply chain crisis. Now, Kyle noted that the supply chain crisis was so bad, and that's why we needed to have our factories in the United States. But what's the problem? Well, has it ever occurred to you, Kyle, that it was because of the lockdowns which caused the supply chain crisis? And in America, there were many tyrannical lockdowns. Elon Musk had to basically break the law to keep his factories open. And again, if you care so much about the supply chain crisis, how about you stop locking down all of the factories? Now, that being said, yeah, I understand that parts of China right now have large lockdowns, even in 2022, but my point is that the overall problem is not having factories in different countries, it's just about big government being stupid in the first place. And there was a really interesting clip on The Hill Rising in which one of the guys described the problem of having factories in the United States as like having a Suez Canal incident every single day.
How can you even declare yourself a sovereign nation if you can't, on a dime, close your borders and be self-sufficient? You have to be able to be, to some level. Basics.
We should not close our borders and be self-sufficient. The U.S. government, we would have a Suez Canal debacle every day if the U.S. government was in charge of domestic manufacturing.
Now, why don't we see as many factories in the United States? Well, every factory has to have a large degree of union involvement, and even if the union's not allowed to officially operate there, there's all of these damn protests and politicians interfering, which really gets in the way of economic progress. And regarding the cost of labor, yeah, when we're dealing with a country where the housing market is going insane, house prices going up and up, these corporations are gonna have to pay higher and higher salaries because the housing markets are just more and more speculative, and it's crazy. Now, if you look at a country like Eastern Europe, because the cost of renting a house is $500 a month, which is insanely amazing when you compare that to London, where I have to pay $100 a month to live in a flat with two other people. Yeah, it makes you think, surely it would be better to just build a factory in a place where there's overall lower living costs. Now, what are the possible solutions? Well, over time, the concept of unemployment in the Rust Belt area is going to be less of a problem because the younger generations are more adaptable to change in the economy compared to those boomers. And also, what we could do is have universal basic income where people can actually afford on low-wage jobs because everybody gets a massive subsidy. There could be lower taxes for small and medium businesses, which provides many more business opportunities and more jobs. And also, we could have depopulation. Depopulation would mean that there's more housing, more living space, and more resources for the rest of the country. And we could also decapitate the government, so then the free market can just make the world a much better place. Anyway, that concludes today's video as to why Kyle Kulinski's protectionist nonsense is just wrong. Here I've depicted it as a car crash because it's, that's how the economy is going to go if you listen to his ideas. Anyway, if you liked the video, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe.